Do you wake up every day fired up to make a difference? Are you committed to taking your nonprofit to the next level and beyond? I have news for you. Success isn't about hard work or passion. It's about having a smart, scalable strategy in place. Hi, I'm Tom Kelly, your nonprofit catalyst. You may know me as the CEO of Charity Auctions Today and Donor Books, or the author of The $1 Million Nonprofit. What I help nonprofits achieve that give them a significant edge and a clear path to substantial growth is the ability to strategically fundraise and effectively engage their community. And that's what I'm going to share with you right here on the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. In each episode, I'm going to take you behind the scenes to reveal the strategies, techniques, and tactics of successful nonprofits so that you can put these into practice immediately to grow your organization. No matter if we are talking about common pitfalls nonprofits make and how to avoid them, exploring how to accelerate your next fundraising campaign, looking at how to attract ideal donors, or everything in between, this conversation is designed to drive your nonprofit forward. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. The $1 Million Nonprofit is brought to you by Charity Auctions Today, the all-in-one platform that makes fundraising auctions easier, faster, and more effective for nonprofits all around the world. Are you looking to raise more money for your nonprofit? Whether you're organizing an in-person gala, an online auction, or a hybrid event, Charity Auctions Today has got you covered. Their platform is designed to help you maximize your fundraising efforts with easy-to-use tools that make it simple to manage everything from auction items to donor engagement. Imagine running an auction where your supporters can bid from anywhere at any time, all while you track the progress in real time. Charity Auctions Today takes the hassle out of managing your event so you can focus on what really matters, raising money for your cause. I've personally seen the impact that Charity Auctions Today can have on a nonprofit's fundraising efforts. With their robust features, you can create custom branded auctions, automate bid updates, and even integrate with your existing CRM system. Plus, their customer support is second to none, ensuring that you have all the help you need to make your auction a success. So if you're ready to take your fundraising to the next level, head over to charityauctionstoday.com and start your free trial today. That's charityauctionstoday.com. Don't miss out on the opportunity to boost your fundraising and make a bigger impact. Thank you to Charity Auctions Today for sponsoring this episode of the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast and for helping nonprofits do more good in the world. Welcome back to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. Today, we're diving into the art of donor stewardship and the strategies for aligning donor goals with your mission to boost donations for your cause. It's not as simple as sending out letters or emails asking for contributions and waiting for the funds to roll in. There's a proven recipe for success if your aim is to scale your nonprofit to the $1 million. I can't think of a better person to discuss this with than Miranda Roberts, fundraiser and relationship builder at Foundations Communities. With over a decade of experience in volunteer organization, development, and marketing for nonprofit organizations, Miranda brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. Miranda, welcome to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with, tell me what exactly is donor stewardship and what are some of the other terminologies that some nonprofits might use to replace the word stewardship?
Donor stewardship is really inviting your donor, whether it's a sponsor, corporate, or individual donor, to come alongside you on the journey to furthering your mission, not just having a one-off gift, but certainly bringing them alongside you so then they are with you for the long haul to really bring in other people in their own community to support the work as well. And so that can look like donor engagement, volunteer engagement. It can look like donor management, lots of different words for stewardship, but ultimately it is the relationship with your donor that you build with them to bring them alongside the journey with you.
And when you're building this relationship with them, how deep do you go? Do you go and find who their favorite sports team is, how many kids, what their names are? Like, how deep do you go into a donor, and how effective is that strategy?
I mean, sometimes you got to go deep, you can bond over the New York Jets. You can certainly bond over having kids, whatever that looks like. But really, donor stewardship, it starts with listening to the donor and just getting to know their story. What inspired them to give to you in the first place, right? There was something that sparked motivation within them, whether it was fear, whether it was hope, whether it was, a story that they heard, but something inspired them to give. And so it's really finding what that inspiration was and building upon that each step of the way. So then they still come alongside you for those donations coming in.
What are some of the questions or some of the information when you're looking at a donor that you, Miranda, like always have to try to pull out of them?
My question that I always love asking, especially a first-time donor, is what inspired you to give? Did you come through an online campaign? Was it, here in Austin, we have Amplify Austin. And so it's a 24-hour giving day where we have a lot of donors come in that it's their first time, with some very small gifts and some very big gifts, but there was something that inspired them along the way. And so figuring out what that is, building upon it, not only an online campaign, but maybe they attended an in-person event. Maybe they saw something at your site, point of entry event. Maybe they heard the story from your executive director and were inspired. And so figuring out what makes that donor tick, what makes them really want to be part of the community that you're building and forwarding the mission, is ultimately where we find those stories. And then, of course, volunteers, right? We always want our volunteers. They're giving their time, they're giving their talents. And so we want to bring in that treasure. And so many donors, they've volunteered for years, but have never given a gift. And so figuring out what makes them tick and want to give. A lot of the donors that I have here at Foundation Communities come from our tax program. And in our tax program, we've got volunteers who have come for, 10, 15 years to help people with their taxes. And they have seen the world of difference that it has made for them, for the clients that they're serving. And, they think of those clients almost as their neighbors, or, the same age as their kids, or, what have you. And so really figuring out where that parallel is to marry it into the mission is the sweet spot.
Can you elaborate just on stewardship one more time? Like what exactly, when a new nonprofit is just starting out and they hear the word stewardship, I know we talked about how, you really want to go deep and find as much information out about that donor so that you can really try to maybe even tailor your messaging around like the Jets or the Chicago Cubs, and really kind of maybe offer them gifts of like, here's some tickets, or thank you for the donation. How about some tickets to this sporting event, or talking about their kids. But, go a little bit deeper on that word stewardship and really what they can, a small nonprofit can really focus on.
Yeah. So donors, on the other side of donor stewardship, working with donors, it's all about listening. It's really figuring out what, not only what makes them tick, what inspired them to give, but also how they want to be communicated with. I work with donors of all generations. And so figuring out whether it's a call, whether it's a text, whether it's a handwritten letter that a donor prefers to be communicated with, I think that's one of the first steps to figure out really how a donor wants to be communicated with, and also how they give. One example that I have is I have a sweet donor. I'll call her Donna. And so Donna,
Donor Donna,
when I first came to Foundation Communities, I just wanted to get to know really who our donors were, get to know their inspiration and how they wanted to be communicated with, what information they wanted. And I very quickly learned that Donna is in her 80s and she doesn't check her email. She's not around her landline. She still has a landline. She's not around that a whole lot either. But she loves our mission and she wants to be communicated with. And so we've just become pen pals. I write her a letter once a quarter and just let her know of things that are happening. And then at the very end, of course, in all of those letters, invite her to connect. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces, is really figuring out how your donors want to connect with you, whether it's a phone call again, whether it's a text, how that works. But it might seem daunting at first, especially to a smaller nonprofit who probably has a very small development team or even maybe one person. But, figuring out even 5 donors a month, how they want to be communicated with, what they want to know, and then, building upon that with the information that you want to give about your mission or the impact of things that they have.
Yeah, I like that because stewardship makes me think of really going in, doing that deep dive reconnaissance of how they want to be communicated with, what are their likes and interests. Donor engagement is maybe more like, how are you, communicating with them as far as like donor outreach or like asking for donations. But almost the stewardship is really just information gathering, if you want to think of it that way. And trying to pull in, and I love what you said, like, some donors, they want to be written to, right? They want to be pen pals, and they don't have an email. They don't want phone calls. So really doing that deep dive. And I love that for small nonprofits, focusing on 5, donors a week or a month, and just doing that research on exactly who they are, how they want to be communicated with, what is their communication style.
Yes.
I think that's a great tip for everybody just starting out, to really just kind of get your feet wet, because that's the hardest part, is really just starting.
Exactly.
Right? And especially if you come into an organization, you're like, oh, shoot, we got thousands of donors. Where do I even start? We've never done this before. We don't know anybody. They're just in an email list that we blast out to through MailChimp,
exactly.
Once a week or once a month, hoping that they donate, but nobody's taken the time to actually call them and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm Miranda. I'm Tom. Nice to meet you. This is our organization. Thanks for being a donor. Tell me about you.
Yes. Donors, they want to be listened to, and they want you to ask questions, because ultimately, the deeper of a relationship that you can build with your donor, and I say deep as in like knowing how to communicate, knowing what they want to hear about, knowing who they want to hear from. And then when you're listening to those things, figuring out what's inspired them to actually give and keep giving, then you're able to feed them that information that makes them feel a part of the organization too. And so it's all about the listening game. And if you can listen and you can do what they've asked of you, then that's a lot higher chance to keep them around for a very long time.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think that's probably one of the things where it does take a lot of work, and it's probably a full-time position, right? Because is that the only thing you do for foundations?
It is not the only thing I do. It's not the only thing I do.
Like every nonprofit, right?
Exactly. But it's I will say, it's one of my favorite things that I get to do. Relationship builder is in my title, and I've got a nice portfolio of donors that I get to communicate with. And, in your first year of getting to know donors, of course, it's I like to call it almost like dating. It's like a first date, right? You're getting to know each other, likes, dislikes, what they're interested in.
Ooh, I like
but
that.
Certainly building upon that, you get to build this fun relationship and get to really to know exactly how to interact and how to inspire them to keep coming.
I like that tip. Date your donors.
Date your donors.
Yeah, it's okay, right? They've shown interest in your organization, right? So get to know them, and really try to pull all of those questions out. I know my wife likes to just constantly just ask questions, and she's always like, oh, I wish we could just go on first dates all the time. I'm like, because she just loves that information gathering portion of it, right? And I think a lot of people are that way, and they just like to, if they're interesting and they want to be, and they're interested in other people, they just want to ask questions and have great conversations. And another note that I made on our conversation so far is, how the conversations look depending on generations, right?
Absolutely.
So some of your older donors, again, they probably sit there and they wait for that letter every quarter. Tell me about the organization. Tell me how my money has helped it grow. And then what can I do if I gave you more money? What would happen, right?
Exactly.
And some might just like a little text with an emoji with I don't know, maybe we should create a nonprofit, sympathy emoji, or I don't even know what it would be called, but I heart you for my nonprofit emoji.
That's perfect. And, whenever I do have some donors who love a text message. And so in that manner, knowing that I can text certain donors, I'll give an example of, we have foundation communities. We work in affordable housing, and not only affordable housing, but we make it beautiful, and we have on-site services for our residents. And we are opening up 2 new properties this summer. And I know that one of my donors loves the after-school programs that we have at our learning centers. And our new learning center that we're about to open is gorgeous. And so during construction, I've gone and I've taken pictures of that learning center all along the way and sent them over to her and her family to say, look where we are, look what stage we're at. I cannot wait to show you this. And so by being able to show her the progress and say that, this is in your neighborhood, like this is what you're going to get to be a part of, and this is where your investments are going. I think, showing the investment of their money as to what it's going to and how they will get to continue that impact has been really cool. And I'm so thankful that we do have donors that want text messages from me.
How do you stay organized with communicating with your donors? And you said, well, we'll start with that question first. And then my second question to that is, you say you have a nice portfolio of donors.
Yes.
Are there multiple people in your nonprofit that do what you do and have a little portfolio of donors that they're responsible for engaging?
I'll go with that question first, only because I forgot your first question. But yes, my development.
This was the more important one, I think.
There you go. My development team, we've got 4 of us who all manage a small portfolio of donors. They are first-time gifts that we've got in there. We've got mid-level donors, we've got major donors, but essentially there are folks who have come in that really have shown us that they are boots on the ground and interested in everything that we're doing. And so by being able to have that portfolio and really create a cadence of communication with those donors, it's such a delight. It's such a delight to know that next week I'm going to get to write a letter to donor Donna and let her know what our summer has been. Or I get to call that first-time donor who let me know that they really donated because they are so inspired by our health initiatives program. And so letting them know that we're about to open up a new food pantry and we would love for them to come and be a part of it, in whatever way they can. And so by really seeing where those donors have come in within my own portfolio, then I'm able to kind of put more of a focus and a lens on how they want to be communicated with, and really opportunities for them to plug in. Again, coming back to whatever inspired them and motivated them to give that gift in the first place, we want to expand upon that and even invite their own community in to be a part of it too.
How do you stay organized with that, with hundreds, maybe thousands of donors? How do you know which ones that you want to keep in your portfolio, and what are the ones? How do you organize them to say, all right, these people, we haven't been able to get in touch with them. We're not kind of keeping them in our regular follow-up sequence. How do you kind of segment your donor base based on that?
Yeah. Especially for a small nonprofit, but, it's all about scalability. So starting small, making sure that you are not overwhelmed with your portfolio, I think is a really big part of it. Mine, I just added a few more to it because I'm comfortable where I am now, but starting small and being able to say, okay, these are the donors I'm going to concentrate on for, 6 months to a year. And in that year, really being able to see what your donors are responding to, how they're responding to it, if it's prompted another gift, if it's prompted them to maybe bring some friends in to, see the property or see your site or whatever that looks like. And then we have other donors who really, they'll open our newsletters that we send via email, but they're not really coming into much of the fold of any more interaction. And so sometimes it is a bless and release. It's okay, we're going to take you off of this list, and you're getting our communications and you're interacting with those, but really there's not a whole lot after that with with one-on-one communication. And so we're able to take them off the list, put them on really a more general one, and then move somebody else who was on the more general list that you see, moving them up into a new spot. And so we do that. We do that about every 6 months at my organization, just seeing where the cadence is of our donors, how they've been interacting. And then every year, of course, we go through the full list of our top, medium, and first times, really to see what everybody's capacity is too. We are only, you're only one person. You can only do so much. And so really being able to figure out where your own cadence is and where your donors are within that spectrum is going to be the most helpful thing.
I always, when I work with small nonprofits, I always tell them that they need to think like a for-profit business, right? They need to, the strategies are pretty much the same. And it almost sounds like this job that you have here with donor stewardship is almost like the sales process. It could be like the prospecting to the salesperson that's constantly communicating, finding out what the person likes, the prospect likes, what they don't like, and tailoring a message to them to hopefully get them to stay engaged and donate year after year.
Very much, yes.
So with coming is like a sales, do you guys have like goals, like donation goals that you're trying to reach every month, quarter? Who sets those, and how important is having that goal for your team? Because a lot of small nonprofits think of for-profit as a dirty word, and trying to like go out and be like, oh, we need to get X number of dollars in donations this month. And like, that's your team's goal, right? Is to bring in that dollar amount for the organization. But those are the things that an organization that wants to hit that $1 million a year donation mark, they have to think that way, because that's the only way that it's going to kind of keep them on track.
So instead of thinking of myself as a salesman, because I don't like that word, but not everybody thinks of it as a dirty word. But I really, we're selling hope. We're selling, this inspiration that our mission and our vision of what we're doing is going to not only help the community that's immediately around us, but have that ripple effect to essentially help people in general. And so in looking at it that way, and then alongside that, seeing the goals that we have set for ourselves, you can go about it to saying, okay, I want to get the Tesla or the Google or the Facebook, but while those for-profit organizations are great, and they're great at what they do, they also have limited resources as to what they're going to give. And so for my team and my organization, we really look at different companies who their own mission aligns with our goals. We, being in affordable housing, we partner with a lot of real estate companies. We partner with a lot of builders. And so really seeing where that sweet spot is in your own community of who people are giving to and where they're giving to, I think is like one of the first parts, right, of prospecting anybody, but then coming in and saying, okay, we do have this $1 million goal. How are we going to get there? And breaking that down into what you think you can get from corporate dollars, what you think you can get out of grants, of course, but then also individuals. And I would also say never be afraid to speak your goal into existence, and speaking that goal into existence with your donors. Your donors are coming alongside you because they believe in your mission. They want to see that good work that you're doing. And so letting them know, like, we have this $1 million goal that we want to reach because X, Y, and Z, and this is the breadth of the impact that it's going to have. That itself is inspiring, in my opinion. And from what I've seen to my donors, they want to come alongside you and they want to do that work. And the more excited that you can get your donors about your work, whether it's, bringing them in, again, boots on the ground or into a volunteer experience, the more that they're going to want to talk about it to their own community. I love it when we have new volunteers or new donors coming into the fold and they say, oh my gosh, I've seen that logo everywhere, but we never knew that it was Foundation Communities. And so saying, yes, we're in your neighborhood and this is actually what, your gift is going towards, it excites people. And so the more that you can inspire people by sharing your goal, I think that the easier it becomes to create even higher goals to reach for yourself too.
I agree. And you said something that really resonates with me is like, speak it into existence, right?
Yes.
I believe in that 100%. And also, like, you don't know who the person is that you're necessarily talking to. They might hear like, hey, we're $200,000 short of our goal. And they leave the conversation. Maybe they donate a couple $1,000s, but now they're thinking, hey, I need to figure out how can I help Miranda make another, $180,000. And who do I know that can donate and help Miranda out, right? So if you don't like be vulnerable and honest with them, they're never going to know how much they actually need how much you need their help to potentially bring in more donations. So if you don't explain the goals to them and share the vision of what you're trying to do, and I loved you said something earlier. It was you're selling hope. I love that. Like, I love that when you think of it that way, it's like, wow, you're right. I am selling hope for these, hundreds, thousands, millions of people out here where these donations are going to go and help. It's like a whole new way of showing up every day as in a position like this, when you're like, oh, I got to make 10 calls today. I don't want to do it. But then if you're like, dude, I'm selling hope here.
I'm selling hope. You get to share these human stories of the people that you are working to help in whatever way that looks like. I've worked, with chronic homelessness. I've worked with refugees and now affordable housing, and just getting to share the stories of the clients that we get to serve and showing the impact that even a $5 donation has on a family to buy a bus pass. That bus pass got that client to work, and that work ended up turning into a career, and then they were able to feed their family. Like it just spirals and it goes down. And so the more that you can inspire people by the stories that ultimately they're helping create, the more that they feel like they can do as well.
Yeah, I love that. It all pretty much comes down to the story that you can tell and how well you tell that story of the organization, and really just showing through that story the impact that those donations have, right?
Absolutely.
And I always think, donors love seeing and hearing from the nonprofit of like, hey, this time is where your money helped out, or this is the person that it helped out, or, this, that, or the other, because it really gives that personal connection to, I gave you money. And it's not like, hey, I just gave you $1,000 and then I'm just moving on, with my normal day and I forget about it. But a few weeks later, a month later, if they send a note saying, hey, Tom, thank you for that $1,000 donation. This is what we were able to do with it. It makes me be like, well, I want to give you another $1,000.
Exactly.
And so maybe a one time a year donation could turn into once a quarter or once a month. So, having, after our conversation today, thinking about donor stewardship is, one, being the fact finder, right? But then it's also like sharing with them the personal message to be like, hey, donation Donna, this is what your donation was able to do. And, really just try to get them in with your stories to maybe get them to be a regular donor on a monthly or quarterly basis instead of maybe one time a year.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing about Donor Donna. She has spread the message about our organization to her church friends, to her neighbors in her neighborhood. And they have actually come up with end of year gifts to give us every single year. And it's been incredible just to see how they've plugged in from these little handwritten notes that we send that tell inspiration, that share the story of what they're able to help us do.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like your donors are like its own little army of marketing and salespeople, right?
Exactly.
And if you can reach them on a different level than other organizations, they're going to be talking about your organization first and foremost and telling now all of their friends about it. And all that's going to do is lead into more donors down the road and more branding and, just brand recognition.
100%.
Like you said, with your logo showing up everywhere. Oh, I didn't know you were in our neighborhood. It's like, yeah, that's who we are.
Yeah. Our donors get so excited to share about, especially new properties that are opening up. But even if they come and volunteer to do a supper club, or they come to help in the food pantry, whatever that looks like, they're just happy to be a part of it because you've invited them into the fold to not only invest in the organization through their treasure, but their time and talents as well.
Nice. This is probably going to be my last question today.
Sure.
I could talk forever. So you're going to come back. We're going to talk more about different stuff. Okay.
Perfect.
But out of, everything that we've kind of talked about today, and I have a bunch of bullet points of our recap here, which are like little nuggets that are just gold, right? But what do you think a brand new nonprofit that's just starting out, has maybe 100 donors or less, what is probably the easiest and fastest action they can take today to really start to kind of build out their donor stewardship program or initiative?
So I am the biggest fan of working smarter and not harder. And so if a small nonprofit, whether they have a CRM or not, to really hold all of that donor information, setting up a cadence of communication with donors. When donors know that you're going to send them an email, give them a call, text, whatever that looks like once a quarter, so they can see not only what's been done in the quarter previously, but what they can look forward to. I think that creates so much inspiration because it's not, okay, well, we did this and good job, but here's where we're going. And this is the vision and this is our goal. And we want you to be a part of it. And so always inspiring people with what's next, what you want to do. Again, speaking it into existence, making sure that they know things that they can be a part of. I think that that's so important. And so if that cadence is only twice a year because that's all you've got capacity for, then that's what it looks like. But if you do have a really good CRM, my organization, we use Razor's Edge. There's a lot of different capabilities in there that you can set up. The CRM rather will set up for you different touch points like, okay, well, you haven't talked to this donor in 4 weeks or 4 months or whatever that looks like. And so it'll send you a little ping. But I love me a good to-do list, and I love putting appointments on a calendar. So I know that at the end of the week, I'm calling Donna, or I'm going to send her an email, or I'm going to reach out to that church that was really inspired by the end of year giving. And so just knowing the different ways to be able to set that on the calendar and just have it there, not even having to think about it. But okay, that's what I get to do at the end of this week is so important. And like I said, we're only one person. And so if it's a 1 person or a 3 person or even 10 person team, there's always a way to be able to set up that cadence of communication.
Well, and these different CRM systems make it very easy if you actually use the feature, right?
If you use the features, yes.
And so many people buy this expensive software and use like maybe 10% of what it's actually capable of.
Yes.
And, this is probably one of those divisions within an organization that you need to be detail oriented. You need to put in the time to set the reminders for, the end of the quarter, or to reach out in a month or two and put in the notes of, Donor Donna likes postcards and handwritten notes and I don't know, Giving Carrie likes, text messages on Wednesday afternoon, inviting her to happy hour, at the
Exactly.
Strand, right? So like those are the little things about you have to utilize those systems.
Using
and
it.
they're all wonderful. And there's so many out there at all different price points. So like Razor's Edge, I know is a big one, right? So
Yes.
There are some smaller ones that could be a good starting point for a smaller nonprofit. And you can always graduate to a bigger and better, software down the road. But if you're kind of struggling for funds at the beginning, there's so many options out there and it's great. But you, again, have to utilize the technology the way that it was intended for.
Exactly.
So that it basically works for you. Because I can imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably show up every morning, you log in, and it probably tells you the 5 or 10 people you need to contact today or this week, right?
I log in and it shows me every single person in my portfolio, where they are within communications and kind of their donor journey. And so I can say, okay, well, donor David, I haven't talked to him in a while. And so it's time that I give him a call. I know that he gives every single year at the end of the year. And so just stewarding him throughout the year, saying, hey, you've given to this program. This is what's happening right now. And we can't wait to tell you more about it, knowing that at the end of the year, that's when I'm going to get to give the thank you call.
Yeah, that's awesome. And for everybody listening, that's like, wow, just seems too big, too heavy. I don't think I can do this. If you utilize the technology and you set it up in that way from the beginning, it's easy to come in and say, okay, I got to do these 5 things today, and that's it. And then tomorrow there'll be 5 or 10 new things. And then the next day, 5 things. So you're really just chipping away 5 donors at a time if you want to start that way. Even 1 donor a day is fine, right?
One bite at a time. And really being able to also set time aside to do the trainings. I think that that's something that not every organization allows themselves to do, because there are so many things on the to-do list, but taking the time to learn your CRM, to learn the capabilities, and then even divvying out the different tasks that people can do within the CRM, I think is so important.
Yeah, that's great. So this is the recap that I pulled away from this. I hope everybody listening pulled away a lot more. But the top 5 takeaways from this conversation: change your conversations depending on who your donor is. So basically, how conversations look depending on the generations, right? Of how old the user is. Younger donors might like donation or text messages. Older donors might want that handwritten postcard, right? And then date your donors. You got to date your donors. If you go into it thinking, hey, I'm here to date my donor and find out as much information and pull all of that information out of them that I can, so that I can update my CRM so that my future communications with them are basically very personalized. That's what your goal is when you're trying to date your donor. And I think one of the biggest things that you said at the very beginning, you said it multiple times throughout this conversation, is find the reason why they donated in the first place.
Absolutely.
What's their why? And I think if you can really pull that out of them, that will just help lead your direction of how you're going to communicate with them in the future, and even what questions you're going to ask them. To pull more information out of them is going to kind of help you. So that's probably the first thing that you do is what it sounded like. And then you just kind of build on it from there, right?
Yes. The more information that you can get about your donor, especially if they're interested in one program, but also showing them how it might align with another program, can open up doors to so many things. Or maybe they know someone else who might be interested in that second program or third program that you have. And so there's really never, I don't like to ever think that there's just a closed door for, one section for a donor to be a part of, but that there is opportunity everywhere for everyone to get involved.
Yeah, that's so great. The next point I took away was stay organized with CRMs. Maybe invest in the technology. Maybe at some point you got to graduate from the Google Sheet and invest in some at some point. Invest in some technology so that you can show up every day, log in, and it will have ready who you're going to call, all of their profile pulled up so that you can easily basically just get in there, know about your donor, make the phone call, and then move on. Because again, like you, everybody at a nonprofit wears multiple hats, and this is probably the easiest thing for them to be like, oh, I'm too busy, I'll save that for a different day. But if you just even carve out 1 hour a day and just focus on 5 people that you're going to communicate with, it's going to go a long way. And like you said, work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter.
And then the last point that I took away, which I think is probably one of the best golden nuggets of the day, was remember that you're selling hope. And that's the big thing. You're selling hope. You're not a salesman. You're really there to date your donors, communicate with them regularly, and just sell the hope that your organization is providing to the community and to the people that you're helping, so that it can really get these donors to just buy into the mission and hopefully stay a long-term donor. And hopefully you can get them to donate more than once a year.
Absolutely.
And that's the ultimate goal, but you're always selling hope. I love that.
Selling, you say selling hope, but it's really that human interaction. Nothing, you can give your donors numbers and raw data all day, but until that is turned human into a human story where there is big impact or little impact, but ultimately impact of the human spirit, that's ultimately where we all connect on the same level.
Yeah, I love it. Miranda, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to just share your wisdom with everybody. Where can people find out more about you, what you do? Where can we get people to direct their attention to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Miranda Roberts, and you can learn more about what I do at Foundation Communities. I'm also part of AFP, and so I encourage every single fundraiser to join your local AFP chapter, the Association of Fundraising Professionals. It is a vast, vast network of folks who are in marketing, fundraising, outreach, leadership, really, and the skills and the knowledge that I've learned from my peers within that network of people has just been incredible. So AFP for fundraising needs. And then if you want to learn more about affordable housing, Foundation Communities.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Miranda. This has been great. Thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. You're here. That means you're ready to take your nonprofit to the next level and make a greater impact. Come visit realtomkelly.com/playbooks to download free playbooks that your nonprofit can use today to start scaling to $1 million in donations. Plus, so much more. Catch the new behind-the-scenes insights on the next episode, and until then, here's to the impact you will make. I'm Tom Kelly. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and encourage others to listen.